get my 6. Look for that guy. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid. Today, this channel is about that very noisy deer back there behind me in the background. Huh. Shut up now. Shout out to Bill Poole, viewer who sent me this shirt last summer. Isn't that nice? Finally got around to like moving wood or clothes for cold weather into storage and bringing out some of the summer stuff I forgot I had. So I found this. So here it is. And we also have a story for you today that actually comes from Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 12. So many of you have heard this, but many of you haven't. Before we get to it, I'm going to show you this carving stuff I've been doing. It's supposed to be a hobby. It's becoming an addiction. You remember the one I was showing you yesterday I was working on? I finished it. Check this out. Ready? Dun, dun, dun. Look at that. That's all right, isn't it? And then so I bought an acrylic paint set. So I painted this one, as you can see. And then I thought, well, that's neat, but we need a pumpkin. So I made this one next. This guy's got a pumpkin on his head. And I kept the bark to kind of use it as part of the art piece. And then there's this. Yeah, it's supposed to be a mushroom. That's what I think it looks like. And I cut some cedar. This is cedar. This was dogwood. This was yellow tulip poplar. But I cut a straight piece of cedar because I wanted to carve cedar. But I thought, man, that just has a nice bend to it. And use it, make like a natural edge mushroom. I gave it to my wife. You know, she's cooking lumpia again today for all you folks that ordered all that lumpia. She's rolling it, you know, to freeze it. And I said, here, put this in the window in the kitchen. You're always in here. Put this up here. And every time you see it, you can think of me. And she just laughs and laughs. So whatever. I think it means that my artwork makes her happy. When she sees it, she laughs. So it's working. Do some tree knocks there. Okay, so I like this story. Most of you probably haven't read it. I know many of you have. But the moral of the story is don't do something stupid. If you got like a situation you're in that you're uncomfortable with, just get out of it. Don't do anything stupid that's going to cost you, you know, life in prison maybe. The woman in this story almost did. But Bigfoot Sasquatch, this guy right here, well, I don't want to ruin it for you. This is a story called With Deadly Intent. This is from a letter received in the summer of 2021, around the same time I got this shirt from Bill Poole. Okay, Kevin, first I want to thank you for all the amazing stories you tell on your YouTube channel. I admit that I've never read any of your books, but that will be changing soon. I wonder if she read this. It's in Volume 12, available on Amazon. I'm not destitute, but we've been hit pretty hard with this COVID crap. I was working in housekeeping at our local hospital, but quit when the pandemic hit because, frankly, I was scared. But things have been turning around a little, and I plan on reading some of your books very soon, especially the Bigfoot Sasquatch Files series. This actually is the reason for my letter. I am a gratefully married woman in her mid-50s. I say gratefully because though my marriage is not perfect, we all have our ups and downs, my husband is supportive, hardworking, and most importantly to me, faithful. You see, this last part, this issue of faithfulness is most important to me because this is not my first marriage. It's my second. My first husband was a total narcissist, and I think this might be one reason I'm so drawn to your YouTube channel. The first video I saw was the video about your annoying neighbor you took care of with a crayon, and that man's attitude, as you described it, reminds me so much of my first husband's attitude, it's scary. His biggest thing was that he always had to have his way, and if someone actually stood up to him, then he would relentlessly harass that person until they either quit their job, if they were one of his coworkers, or actually moved away if they were one of our neighbors. I had never seen anything like it before. It's like the man would develop these huge grudges against people, and they would fester and fester and fester, and the only thing that seemed to bring that popping release he needed was, again, the person who had pissed him off getting completely out of his sight and out of his life. Narcissist, I might also add borderline personality issues there. However, the most hurtful part toward me in regard to my first husband was his never-ending cheating. He never had mistresses, so to say, no steady girlfriends that he kept in secret. Oh no, he was all about fulfilling his most base sexual desires. Nothing kinky, it's just that if he was out and the opportunity presented itself, he would jump on it. And it's not like he was going to bars or clubs and picking up chicks after he and they had had a few drinks. He would flirt with women in a grocery store or in a fast food restaurant. He was very good looking, very charming, and this actually worked for him. Now, he never did this directly in front of me, though I always caught his eyes wandering and undressing any attractive woman we would come across while we were together in public. But I knew of his extracurricular activities by way of hearsay. But let me point out, it was hearsay that I believed because the ones coming to me with the stories were my truest friends and family members. They would have no reason to lie about it. And after I'd heard about his activities with the third known offense, I called him out on it, and he never even tried to lie. This, his lack of trying to hide his dirty deeds, was painful enough, made me feel like he didn't even care enough about my feelings to try to lie. But his sense of entitlement in regard to his activities, well, that was just misunderstandable. How could someone be entitled to continuously commit adultery? Then, when I saw your neighbor with the crayon story, it all made sense. Some people are just so entitled, their demands for their desires truly defies logic, and this, in a nutshell, was my first husband. You guys watching back there to see if we're getting anyone or anything to come creeping down to hear this story? Thought I heard like a low growl. Keep getting my 6. Now here's where things take a turn for the weird. After watching the neighbor in the crayon video, I continued to watch some of your other videos, and that is when I saw all of the strange stuff happening around your homestead in regard to the potential Bigfoot Sasquatch that may or may not live in the woods behind your house. And by the way, I absolutely love how you are able to add your wit and very dry, almost English sense of humor into your situation to make your videos both scary and hilarious. I had a similar incident with a potential Bigfoot Sasquatch, and it involved my first husband, and I hate to admit this all these years later, it's been about 20, but it also centered around the day that I almost did something that to this day I cannot believe I was going to do, but that I very much was going to do, and that to this day I thank God the Creator, the Father of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, that I did not do. I was actually going to murder my first husband. I'd always been somewhat of a tomboy. I grew up with 4 brothers and no sisters, and my brothers roughhoused around with me as much as they did each other. They always took me fishing as long as I went out and got the worms, which when even as a little girl in grade school, I never had a problem with. Our father taught me to shoot, just as he had my brothers, and I was always hunting with them, and the only thing they didn't like about it was the fact that I was a better shot than all of them, and usually I got the biggest buck of the year each deer season. You go, girl power. It was actually through my brother next up from me, he's 15 months older, that I met my first husband. They were friends, and even though I'd always known who he was, and let's call him Ray for simplicity purposes, even though that is not his real name, I'd never known Ray personally until he started coming home with my brother. It didn't take us long to get involved, and he would later to admit to me, after we'd become engaged the summer after I graduated from high school, that he'd never really liked my brother, but that he started hanging out with him to get to me. Flattering as that was, I should have spotted it as an early sign of a narcissist, if not a right-out sociopath. Sounds like it. He was admitting that he used another person, my brother, to get what he wanted, me. But I was young and naive and in love, so what the heck would I have known about any of this stuff back then, right? Yeah. Anyway, fast forward to about 5 years after we'd gotten married, and I was not so much in love with this good-looking, conniving, egotistical man-whore anymore. I had gotten to the place where I was actually willing to tell him he could do what he wanted out of my sight as long as he did a better job of being discreet about it. Sure, finding out he was constantly having one night or morning or late afternoon stands with other women was painful enough, but once it had gotten to the point to where everyone around town knew about it and I had become the laughing stock of said town, well, that was just all another type of pain I had never known, and I hated it. And then he knew my brother's wife biblically. That's how I'll say it. Yes, the very brother through whom I'd met him. Wow. So he uses the brother once to get to his sister, and then later he gets to know the brother's wife in a biblical sense. What a piece of crap this guy is, no? It was my brother who'd found out about this first. He did a really good job of keeping his cool and making sure to tell me about the incident, which was quickly evolving into an affair, as I guess they were getting together and knowing each other biblically often. In a way, and in a place that I couldn't fly off the handle and make any embarrassing public scenes. It was the fall of the year, which meant it was hunting season, and my brother, we'll call him Bill, and this is not his real name either, actually took me hunting. And only after reaching the most far-away favorite hunting spot of ours deep back in the woods did he break the news to me. At first, I was mad at my brother. You see, Bill had known about the situation for about a month before he decided to tell me. He admitted that that was because he'd hoped it would be like a one-and-done thing, in which case he would just force himself to forget about it. But once he saw it was becoming a full-time thing for his wife and my husband, he knew he had to not just let me know about it, but come up with a plan to deal with it. "What's your grand plan, brother?" I asked him, and let me tell you, I was in a rage. I'm thankful he'd actually taken me out into the woods like that to tell me. I can only imagine the scene I would have caused. "We kill him," my brother said. Bill had always been a joker, but I could always tell when he was joking. I could tell that this time he was not. Just heard whoops. Go back like 10 seconds and listen. Something back here. How? I asked. How are we going to kill him? This stands out so clearly in my mind. It's as if this conversation had taken place only yesterday. Even now, all these years later, I am shocked that my first natural reaction was not to talk Bill out of killing Ray, but wanting to know how he planned to do it, because frankly, I wanted to help. "Like this," Bill said, spreading his arms wide. I didn't get it at first, so I asked him what he meant, and he said, "Do you have any idea how many people were killed last year alone by way of hunting accidents?" "No," I told him, and he told me that any given year there are roughly 100 accidental hunting deaths in the U.S. He then told me that what we needed to do was to lure my husband out to our favorite hunting spot, the very spot where we were sitting at the time, and make sure he never comes back. Bill told me that he would make sure to be in the woods already and that I was not to let Ray know this. I was to take Ray out to the spot and split up. Bill would be in his stand, and after I walked off and was safely away from Ray, Bill would shoot Ray in the head with his .308 deer rifle. That's pretty graphic. As much as I wanted to do this, I was very nervous, but Bill convinced me. He told me that, surprisingly, Ray had kept his extracurricular activities hidden this time around, again because the plan was to turn them into a full-out affair and that no one would suspect that there was ever any deadly intent associated with the accident. He further told me that they wouldn't try to hide anything or cover it up. Bill would come clean from the beginning and admit that he'd shot Ray, believing him to be a deer. No one goes to jail for accidental hunting deaths, he told me. He was convinced we'd be able to carry out this plan, and he was able to convince me, and so I agreed, and I remember being so excited about it. I was finally going to be free of the man who I'd once fallen head over heels for. Let me tell you, he was a really good-looking charmer, but who I'd since come to absolutely despise. I went to Ray and told him that I'd had so much fun hunting with my brother Bill and that it had made me miss all the times that Ray and I had gone hunting together. Ray and I used to love to go hunting together, but he hadn't done so for a couple of years, but we hadn't done so in a couple of years. In time, I would realize that this was because Ray would rather stay back while I went hunting with my brothers so he could go out and know several other women in a biblical sense. It took me several days, but I was finally able to twist Ray's arm enough to get him to agree to go hunting with me. The following Friday, Ray took off from work, and we went. We didn't get up before dawn like most hunters do, and like we usually had done in the past, because we were as thankful as much for the opportunity to sleep in that day as anything else. By the time we got to our parking spot, the sun had been up for an hour. I deliberately parked where I had because I knew Bill's vehicle would be up the road and around the next turn. Sleeping in had also been part of our plan, as doing so would allow Bill to get the head start that he needed to be in position and ready by the time we got to the spot we'd planned to dispatch, as I know you have to say on social media, my husband. That's true. You gotta know all these code words. And if they don't exist, you make them up. Like that shirt I wore yesterday. What do we call that? Domestic partner disagreement attire. You say what that shirt's called, man? Velvet handcuffs. Ray and I had been walking for about an hour. There was a couple inches of snow on the ground where we were, though there had been none back in town. This wasn't surprising because this was common. We lived in very steep hills, and the elevation was considerably higher when we hunted the tops of the hills, and it often snowed up there when it never snowed down in town. All of a sudden, Ray, who'd been walking in front of me, came to a quick stop, and he said, "We're not alone." Oh, great, I thought. Bill had come too far over this side of the hill on his way to his stand, and Ray was seeing his tracks. At least this is what I was thinking. But when I closed the distance on Ray and looked down at what he was seeing, I saw that I was wrong. Very wrong. Kevin, I swear on my life, and to the point to where I give you my full permission to share this story on your YouTube channel or in one of your books. Maybe this would motivate me to finally get around to reading them, LOL. When I looked down, I saw what I thought at first to be a Bigfoot Sasquatch footprint in the snow. I say thought because in just a few short minutes, I would know. Before Ray and I had time to take another step, we heard the percussion of a gunshot, and it came from less than 100 yards away. The next thing we knew, my brother Bill was running through the woods directly toward us, yelling, "Run! Run!" Ray nor I needed to ask Bill what it was we were supposed to be running from. We'd seen the track, and even though none of the three of us, or anyone else I could think of for that matter, had ever had any sort of conversation about things like Bigfoot Sasquatches or Loch Ness monsters or ghosts or UFOs, we knew we didn't need to take the time to have one now. We only needed to run, and run we did. We got back out to our vehicle in about 15 minutes, half the time it had taken us to walk into the woods. Bill went with us, and once we were all safe and had caught our breath, he did a great job of playing dumb and acting like he was surprised that we were there. "What in the heck did you shoot?" Ray asked, which was the same question that was burning in my mind. "You wouldn't believe me," Bill said. "We saw the track," Ray said. "Try us." "I swear to God," Bill said, something he never said, and I'd put my hand on a Bible. "I just shot a letter effing Bigfoot Sasquatch." I better choose your words wisely there with your hand on that book, boy. Don't talk like that. "Did you kill it?" I asked. "I don't know," Bill said. "When I saw this thing coming through the woods, sniffing around in the air like an animal, I couldn't believe my eyes. But it didn't take long to figure out that the son of a B-word was sniffing around for me. It spotted me up in the tree stand, and it started shimmying up the tree like it was the easiest dang thing in the world. I was so scared I felt paralyzed, but I knew if I didn't pull my head out of my backside. Man, her brother cusses a lot. And do something. I was a dead man, so I pulled myself together and shot the some B word. Hey, whatever. Did you kill it? Ray asked, repeating my question. I don't know, Bill said. It dropped out of the tree and landed on its back, but it rolled real quick and got right back up and took off running over the hill. I wasn't about to stick around and find out. We gave Bill a ride to his vehicle, and then we all went back to Mom and Dad's house. We told our parents and our other brothers about what had happened, and it was decided that we would all go out there with guns, of course, that afternoon and see if we could find the body. I'll admit, not with any shame, that we were hoping that my brother had killed the thing because we were all seeing dollar signs. Hey, she's just an honest person. I could only imagine the fame and fortune that would come with actually proving that these things did exist, and what better way to do that than with a body? I'll also admit that now killing one of these magnificent creatures would be the last thing I would ever do. I've since come to understand how rare these things are, and I honestly believe they should be protected and put on the protected species list. Anyway, that afternoon in the woods, I wasn't feeling so protective of these creatures. Like everyone else in our small hunting party, I was concerned with protecting myself. We split up into groups of 2 during our search so that no one would run the risk of being caught alone by the creature if it was still alive, or any others if they were out there. And though I kept my rifle on safe, as I was supposed to do, my finger never left the trigger well. You'd have made a nice infantry woman. Finger never leaves that trigger well. My father actually picked up the blood trail. He called us all to come to him, and we did, and we tracked the trail for about 100 yards. Just like when shooting a deer, but not in a vital organ, the blood was heavy at first, but it soon thinned out into next to nothing, an absolute trickle, and then it was gone. We never found any body that day because we all agreed my brother had only injured the Bigfoot Sasquatch, and the creature had lived to see more days. Again, looking back now, I'm glad of the outcome. Something happened during this experience, though, that would save me from making a grave mistake that may have, in time, led to my brother Bill and me both spending the rest of our lives in prison. While walking back to our vehicles, after not being able to find the body of the Bigfoot Sasquatch Bill had shot, it was like the voice of reason screamed loud and clear in my head. It said, "Get a letter effing divorce." And I did. It was simple, really. Ray and I didn't have any kids, and I basically told him I wanted a no fault, and that he'd give it to me, or I would ruin him by simply going and having a little talk with some of the husbands of the women he'd been screwing. I should have said women he'd been knowing in a biblical sense. He didn't fight me, and within months we were divorced. Sadly, Bill tried to make things work between himself and his wife. When Bill called her out on her infidelities with my ex-husband, she really turned on the waterworks and convinced my brother she would change her woman of ill reputish ways. But she didn't. Surprise, surprise. She continued to sleep with my ex-husband for months, but then she found a new beau in some schmuck she worked with. She would actually go on to leave my brother for this schmuck who, 2 years later, would leave her for some bimbo. Yeah, we sound like a bunch of stray cats, but hey, this is, as you call it so hilariously in your videos, Appalachistan. Kevin, it will never cease to amaze me how so many people who have no idea what may or may not exist in this world are so quick to write off the possibility of the existence of Bigfoot Sasquatch. And it's sickening how many of these, as you call them, vertically challenged individuals who live under bridges, come to your channel to insult you and your viewers simply for questioning the possibility. I personally do not question because I know, and I know from experience, the experience I just shared with you. Again, you have my full permission to use this story on your channel or even in one of your books. Just do me a favor and let me know if you do, and please do not use my name or tell anyone where specifically I live, not even which state. Just tell everyone I live in the semi-autonomous region, at least economically, culturally, and in regard to speech and language, on the East Coast known collectively as Appalachistan. I can't wait for your next video, and once again, thank you for everything you do. Sincerely, T.S., somewhere in deep, dark Appalachistan. P.S. Like many other people who watch your videos, I have seen some really strange things in some of your videos. I know this sounds nuts because we're supposed to be looking for Bigfoot Sasquatch, but there have been a few times when I swear I saw what looked like a camel in the background of your video. I know, crazy, right? If you really want to read one of my books, read The Lunatic, and you'll find out how not crazy that just might be. I'm gonna go hang out with my wife. See y'all next time for more.